The stars were cold and quiet in this part of space. No one came here anymore. The Outer Rim was a place of dead worlds and forgotten wars. But the human starship Horizon's Edge moved through the darkness like a shark through deep water. It was searching for something. It did not know what yet. Kang Doyan stood at the window of the observation deck. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face full of scars. His eyes were dark and tired. He had been a soldier for 15 years. He had killed many enemies of Earth. He had watched many friends die. Now he was 35 years old, and he felt much older. The ship was quiet at this hour. Most of the crew was sleeping. Doyon could not sleep. He never slept well. The ghosts of the dead visited him in his dreams, so he stayed awake as long as he could. A soft alarm began to beep. Doyon looked at the console near the window. A light was flashing. He walked over and pressed a button. "Bridge, this is Sergeant Kong," he said. "I am seeing something on the long-range sensors." Captain Park Jisu's voice came through the speaker. She sounded alert even at this late hour. "We see it too, Sergeant. Come to the bridge." Doyan walked through the metal corridors of the ship. The Horizon's Edge was not a beautiful vessel. It was a military ship built for war and exploration. The walls were gray. The lights were harsh. But it was home to 150 humans. Doyan had served on it for 3 years. The bridge was a large room full of screens and controls. Captain Park stood at the center, looking at the main display. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair cut short. She had commanded this ship for 10 years. Everyone respected her. "What do we have?" Doyan asked. Lieutenant Beek Sunho turned from his station. He was Doyan's closest friend, a cheerful man with quick hands and a faster mind. "A distress signal," he said. "Very old, very weak. It is coming from the 4th planet of this system." Doyan looked at the star chart. "That is Valora," he said. "I thought that world was dead." "It is," Captain Park said. "The Valori civilization was destroyed 300 years ago. The Krath Dominion killed them all. Every man, woman, and child." Her voice was cold with anger. Everyone in the galaxy knew what the Krath had done. It was one of the greatest crimes in history. "Then who is sending the signal?" Doyan asked. No one had an answer. Captain Park made her decision quickly. "We will investigate. Sergeant Kang, prepare a landing team. Take 5 soldiers. Be careful." Doyan nodded. He was always careful. That was why he was still alive. 1 hour later, the shuttle dropped through the atmosphere of Valora. Doyan sat in the pilot seat, guiding the small craft through thick gray clouds. Behind him sat 5 soldiers in full combat armor. They carried rifles and grenades. They were ready for anything. The clouds parted and Doyan saw the surface of the planet. His heart became heavy in his chest. Valora was a graveyard. Great cities lay in ruins, their towers broken and fallen. Ash covered everything like gray snow. No trees grew. No birds flew. The sky was the color of old bones. 300 years ago, this world had been beautiful. The Valori had been artists and healers. They had built wonders that made other species weep with joy. Now there was only death and silence. "My God," whispered one of the soldiers. "They killed everything." "The Krath do not believe in mercy," Doyan said. His voice was flat, but inside he felt rage burning. He had fought the Krath before. He knew what they were. The shuttle landed near the source of the signal. It was coming from a large building that had partly collapsed. Once it had been a temple, covered in beautiful carvings. Now it was a ruin. Doyan led his team inside. They moved carefully, their weapons ready. The floor was covered in dust and broken stone. Strange symbols decorated the walls. The air smelled old and sad. "The signal is coming from below," Sunho said, looking at his scanner. He had insisted on joining the mission. "There is a basement level. I am detecting a power source." They found stairs leading down into darkness. Doyan turned on the light attached to his helmet and went first. The stairs were narrow and steep. At the bottom was a small room, and in that room, Doyen found something that changed his life forever. A pod stood against the far wall. It was made of crystal and silver metal. Soft blue light glowed from inside. Frost covered the surface. It was a stasis pod designed to keep someone alive for centuries. Dojan walked closer. He wiped the frost away with his gloved hand. Inside the pod was a girl. She was not human. Her skin was pale silver, and it seemed to glow softly in the darkness. Her hair was white like fresh snow. She looked young, maybe 20 years old by human standards. Her eyes were closed. She looked peaceful, like she was having a good dream. "She is alive," Doyan whispered. "After 300 years, she is still alive." The soldiers gathered around, staring in amazement. They had expected to find ghosts and bones. Instead, they had found a miracle. "What do we do?" one soldier asked. Doyan looked at the controls on the side of the pod. They were simple, designed to be used even in emergency. One button would open the pod and wake the sleeper. He pressed the button. The pod made a soft sound. The frost melted away. The crystal lid slowly opened. The girl's eyes snapped open. Doyen had never seen eyes like hers. They were silver, like liquid metal, and they held a depth of sadness that made his heart ache. For a moment, she just stared at him. Then her eyes moved to his armor, his weapons, scarred face, and she screamed. She screamed with the terror of someone who had watched her entire world die. She pressed herself against the back of the pod, trying to get away from him. Tears ran down her silver cheeks. No, she cried in a language Doyan did not understand, but he understood her meaning. She thought he was here to kill her. She thought the Krath had finally found her. Doyen slowly removed his helmet. He held up his empty hands. He made his voice as gentle as possible. "It is okay," he said softly. "I am human. I am not here to hurt you. You are safe now." She did not understand his words, but something in his voice, something in his eyes, made her stop screaming. She looked at him with confusion and fear and the smallest spark of hope. Doyan smiled at her. It was not something he did often. "My name is Doyun," he said, pointing to himself. "I am going to help you." She stared at him for a long moment. Then, very slowly, she spoke one word. Yuna. It was her name. The name of the last Valor in the universe. And from that moment, Doyen knew he would protect her with his life. The horizon's edge moved through space at full speed. It was heading back to Coalition territory, where Yuna would be safe. Or at least, that was the plan. Doyen was not sure anywhere was truly safe anymore. Yuna had not spoken since they brought her aboard. The medical team had examined her and said she was healthy. Her body had survived 300 years in stasis without damage. But her mind was a different matter. She sat in her small room and stared at the wall. She did not eat. She did not sleep. She just sat there, lost in memories of everything she had lost. Captain Park called Doyan to her office on the second day. "The alien girl needs someone to watch over her," the captain said. "Someone patient. Someone she might learn to trust." Doyan knew what was coming. "You want me to do it? You found her?" She looked at you first. "Maybe that means something." Captain Park studied his face. "You are one of my best soldiers, Kong, but you are also one of the kindest, even if you try to hide it." "She needs kindness now." Doyen wanted to refuse. He was a warrior, not a nursemaid. But then he remembered Yuna's eyes. He remembered the fear and loneliness in them. He remembered what it felt like to lose everything. "I will do it," he said. He went to Yuna's room that evening. She was sitting on the bed, her knees pulled up to her chest. She looked so small and fragile. When she saw him, her body went stiff with fear. Doyen sat down on the floor near the door, as far from her as possible. He did not want to scare her more. He placed a tray of food between them. "I brought dinner," he said. He knew she could not understand him, but he hoped his tone would help. "You should eat something." Yuna did not move. Doyen picked up a piece of fruit from the tray. He took a bite, showing her it was safe. Then he put another piece closer to her. She watched him with suspicious eyes. But after a long moment, she reached out and took the fruit. She ate it slowly, never looking away from him. it was a small victory. Doyen smiled. The days that followed were difficult. Yuna was like a wild animal that had been hurt too many times. Every loud noise made her jump. Every sudden movement made her flinch. She trusted no one. But Doyan was patient. He came to her room every day. He brought food and sat with her in silence. He did not push her. He did not demand anything. He just let her know he was there. The translation implant helped. The ship's computer had found records of the Valori language, and Doyan had the implant installed behind his ear. Now he could understand her words, and she could understand his. 1 week after her rescue, Yuna spoke to him for the first time. "Why?" she asked. Her voice was soft and musical, even when filled with pain. "Why did you save me?" Doyan thought about the question. "Because you needed saving," he said simply. "You do not know me. My people are dead. I have nothing to offer you. I did not save you for a reward. I saved you because it was the right thing to do." Yuna stared at him like he was speaking nonsense. "The Krath killed us because we would not give them our technology. They said we were weak. They said weak species do not deserve to live." Doyen felt anger rise in his chest. The Krath are monsters. Being peaceful does not make you weak. It makes you good. Then why did we die? Tears filled her silver eyes. Why did my mother die? My father? My little brother? They never hurt anyone. They only wanted to help people, and the Krath burned them alive. Doyan did not have an answer. There was no answer that could make sense of such evil. So he just moved closer and sat beside her. Not touching her, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. "I am sorry," he said. "I am sorry for what happened to your people. I am sorry I was not there to help them." Yuna looked at him with wonder. "You would have fought for us, even though we were strangers?" "Yes, but why? Why do humans fight for people they do not know?" Doyen considered the question carefully. It was something he had never put into words before. "Because someone has to protect those who cannot protect themselves," he said finally. "My people have done terrible things in our history. We have hurt each other in ways I am ashamed to speak of. But we also learned something important. We learned that the strong have a duty to protect the weak. Not because the weak are worth less, but because protection is what strength is for." Yuna was silent for a long time. Then she said, "I wish my people had met humans instead of the Krath. I wish we had found you sooner." From that day, something changed between them. Yuna began to eat regular meals. She began to sleep. She even started to walk around the ship, though she always stayed close to Doyan. The crew was kind to her. Lieutenant Sunho made jokes that Doyen had to translate, and sometimes Yuna almost smiled. Captain Park checked on her every day and spoke to her gently. The soldiers who had found her on Valora treated her like a little sister they needed to protect. But Yuna still flinched at certain things. The sound of heavy boots reminded her of Krath soldiers. The sight of weapons made her sick. She could not look at the stars without crying, because somewhere out there was the grave of her entire civilization. One day, she asked Doyen if she could watch him train. He was surprised, but agreed. The combat training room was in the lower part of the ship. It was full of weapons and targets and fighting equipment. Yuna sat in the corner and watched as Doyan moved through his exercises. He punched and kicked the training dummy with perfect precision. He practiced with his knife, his movements fast and deadly. He sparred with other soldiers, throwing them to the ground again and again. He was a creature of violence. His body was a weapon. Everything about him was designed for battle. When he finished, he was breathing hard and covered in sweat. He looked at Yuna, expecting to see fear in her eyes. Instead, he saw something else. Understanding. "You're not cruel," she said softly. "You are fierce. But you are not cruel. There is a difference." Doyen nodded. "My people learn to fight because the universe is dangerous, but we try not to fight with hate. We fight to protect, not to destroy." Yuna stood and walked toward him. For the first time since her rescue, she reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were cool and gentle against his rough skin. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for showing me that strength does not have to mean evil."
Ow.
Dojan looked into her silver eyes. He saw pain there, and sadness, and loss. But he also saw something new. Trust. I made you a promise when I found you, he said. I said I would help you. Now I make another promise. No one will hurt you again. Not while I breathe. I will protect you, Yuna. Always. She did not cry. She had no tears left. But she squeezed his hand, and he knew she believed him. In that moment, they were no longer just a soldier and a refugee. They were something more. They were bound together by a promise that Doyan would keep until his last breath. Outside the ship, stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere in that vast darkness, enemies were already searching for them. The Krath had learned that a Valori had survived, and they would do anything to finish what they had started 300 years ago. But they would have to go through Kong Doyan first. The space station was called Iron Harbor. It floated at the edge of Coalition territory, a meeting point for traders and travelers from across the galaxy. The Horizon's Edge needed to stop here for repairs. The journey from Valora had been hard on the old ship. Doyan did not like the idea of stopping. His instincts told him they were being watched. But Captain Park had no choice. The engine needed new parts, or they would never make it home. Stay close to me, Doyan told Yuna as they prepared to leave the ship. Do not talk to strangers. If anything feels wrong, tell me immediately, Yuna nodded. In the 3 weeks since her rescue, she had grown stronger. She still had nightmares, and she still flinched at loud noises. But she was no longer the broken creature he had found in that stasis pod. There was fire in her eyes now. She had also told him about her people. The Valori had been healers. They had a gift that let them sense the feelings of others. Strong Valori could even heal wounds by touching them, though it cost them their own energy. Yuna had thought this ability was lost to her, damaged by centuries in stasis. But lately she had begun to feel things again. The emotions of the people around her whispered at the edge of her mind. The station was crowded and loud. Aliens of many species walked through the metal corridors. There were traders selling strange goods, mechanics offering repairs, and soldiers drinking in dark bars. Doyan kept one hand on his weapon and the other near Yuna. Lieutenant Sunho walked beside them, his eyes scanning the crowd. I do not like this place, he muttered. Too many shadows. Too many people who look like trouble. We just need to get the parts and leave, Doyan said. A few hours. That is all. But Yuna suddenly stopped walking. Her face went pale. Her hands began to shake. What is wrong? Doyan asked. She whispered. Hatred, cold, terrible hatred. It is like ice in my chest. She looked up at him with fear in her silver eyes. They are here. The hunters are here. Doyan did not question her. He had learned to trust her senses. Sunho called the ship. Tell them to prepare for emergency departure. We need to move. Now. They started walking faster. Doyan pushed through the crowd, keeping Yuna between himself and Sunho. His heart was pounding. His soldier instincts were screaming. They were almost at the docking bay when the first shot came. A bolt of energy flew past Doyan's head and hit the wall behind him. People screamed and ran in all directions. Doyan pushed Yuna to the ground and drew his weapon. He saw them coming. Krath soldiers, at least 20 of them. They were tall and muscular, with gray skin and red eyes. They wore black armor and carried heavy rifles. They moved like predators, precise and deadly. And at their front was a Krath commander. He was bigger than the others, with scars covering his face and medals on his chest. He pointed directly at Yuna. There she is, he shouted. Kill her. The last Valor must die. Doyan fired. His shot hit the commander in the shoulder, but the Krath barely flinched. He just laughed and raised his own weapon. Run. Doyan shouted at Yuna. Get to the ship. I will not leave you. She cried, Go. Sunho grabbed Yuna and started pulling her toward the docking bay. She struggled, but he was stronger. Doyan turned to face the enemy alone. He was one human against 20 Krath. The odds were impossible, but impossible had never stopped him before. He fired again and again, dropping 2 soldiers before they reached him. Then they were on him, and the fight became close and brutal. A Krath swung at his head. Do-Yan ducked and buried his knife in the alien's throat. Another grabbed him from behind. Do-Yan threw himself backwards, slamming the Krath into the wall. He fought like a madman. He fought like a demon. Blood flew through the air, both his and theirs. A rifle butt cracked against his ribs. A knife cut his arm. A fist smashed into his jaw. But he did not fall. He could not fall. Yuna was counting on him. More soldiers from the horizon's edge arrived. They poured into the corridor with weapons blazing. Sun Ho had gotten the message through. The Krath found themselves in a crossfire, but the commander was still coming. He walked through the battle like death itself, killing 2 human soldiers with his bare hands. His eyes were fixed on Do-Yan. "Human filth," he growled. "Why do you fight for that worthless creature? She is the last of a dead race. She is nothing." Do-Yan spat blood from his mouth. "She is everything," he said, "and you will not touch her." They crashed together like 2 storms meeting. The Krath was bigger and stronger. He hit Do-Yan with a force that cracked bones. Do-Yan gasped as pain exploded through his body, but he did not stop fighting. He stabbed his knife into the commander's side. The Krath howled and threw him against the wall. Do-Yan felt something break inside him. His vision went dark for a moment. When it cleared, the commander was standing over him, raising a massive foot to crush his skull. Then something silver flashed in the corner of his eye. Yuna. She had come back. She stood in the middle of the battle, ignoring the soldiers and bullets around her. Her eyes were glowing with strange light. Her hands were raised toward Do-Yan. No, Do-Yan tried to say, "Run." But Yuna did not run. Instead, she touched him. Light poured from her hands into his body. It was warm and pure, like sunshine after a long winter. Do-Yan felt his broken bones mending. He felt his wounds closing. He felt strength flooding back into his muscles. Yuna was healing him. She was giving him her own life energy, just as her ancestors had done for thousands of years. The commander stared in shock. "Impossible," he whispered. The healing gift was lost. Do-Yan stood up. He was not fully healed, but he was strong enough. Strong enough to finish this? He hit the commander with everything he had. 1 punch. 2. 3. The Krath tried to fight back, but Do-Yan was faster now, driven by something more than muscle. He was driven by love. The final blow sent the commander crashing to the ground. He did not get up. The remaining Krath saw their leader fall. They hesitated. And in that moment of hesitation, the human soldiers finished them. The battle was over. Do-Yan turned to find Yuna collapsing to the ground. He caught her before she hit the metal floor. Her silver skin was pale, almost gray. The healing had cost her nearly everything. "Why?" he asked, holding her gently. "Why did you come back?" "I told you to run," Yuna smiled weakly. "You made me a promise," she whispered. "You said you would protect me. But I never said I would let you die doing it. We protect each other now." Do-Yan felt tears in his eyes. He had not cried in 15 years. "You foolish girl," he said softly. "You brave, foolish girl." He carried her back to the ship himself. He would not let anyone else touch her. She had saved his life. She had given him everything she had. And he knew now that he would burn the entire galaxy to keep her safe. Behind them, the station burned with the fires of battle. Ahead of them, the stars waited. The war had truly begun. The message from Earth's coalition command arrived 3 days after the battle at Iron Harbor. Captain Park read it with a face like stone. Then she called Do-Yan to her office. "They want us to give her up," the captain said. Her voice was tired and angry. "The Krath Dominion has threatened war. The coalition does not want to fight an entire empire for one alien refugee." Do-Yan felt cold fury rise in his chest. She is not just one alien. She is the last of her kind. She is proof of what the Krath did. "I know." Captain Park looked at him with sad eyes. "I told them no. I told them we would not abandon her. but they have ordered me to return to Earth immediately. They will take her from us there. I will not let that happen. I know you will not. The captain reached into her desk and pulled out a small chip. This contains all the information about the Velori archive on Dominus Prime. Una told me about it last night. The Velori hid records of the genocide before they died. If you can find those records and show them to the galaxy, the Krath will be finished. Doyon took the chip. You are helping me commit treason. I am helping you do what is right. There is a difference. Captain Park stood and saluted him. Good luck, Sergeant Kang. I hope we meet again. Doyon resigned his commission that night. He expected to go alone. He was wrong. Lieutenant Sunho was waiting outside his quarters with a bag over his shoulder. If you think you are leaving without me, you are stupid, he said with a grin. Behind him stood 11 other soldiers. They were volunteers, men and women who had fought beside Dogen for years. They had heard what was happening, and they had made their choice. Humans do not leave people behind, said Sergeant Nari, a tough woman with short hair and hard eyes. That girl is one of us now. We fight for our own. Doyen looked at them all. His throat felt tight. You will be criminals. You will never be able to go home. Home is not a place, Sunho said. Home is the people you are willing to die for. Now stop being emotional and tell us the plan. They took a small shuttle and left the horizon's edge in the middle of the night. Una was with them. She had recovered from the healing, though she was still weak. When Doyon told her what they were going to do, she insisted on coming. The archive is hidden in my old city, she said. I am the only one who knows where it is. You need me. Doyen wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. He also knew that she needed to do this. She needed to fight for her people, even if they were all dead. They traveled for 2 weeks, moving through back channels and smuggler routes to avoid Krath patrols. Finally, they reached Dominus Prime. The Krath homeworld was a massive planet covered in metal cities and factories. It was ugly and harsh, a world built for war and industry. The air was thick with smoke. The people walked with heads down, afraid of their own masters. Using a stolen Krath ship and fake identification, they landed in the capital city. They wore disguises that made them look like merchants from a neutral species. It was not a perfect plan, but it was the only one they had. Una led them through the dark streets. She was shaking, but her voice was steady as she gave directions. My city was called Silverwind, she said. The Krath built their capital on top of its ruins. They wanted to erase us completely, but they did not know about the archive. They found the entrance hidden in an old sewer tunnel. The Velori had built it to last forever. Behind a false wall was a door that responded only to Velori touch. Una pressed her hand against it, and it opened for the first time in 300 years. Inside was a room full of crystal memory stones. They glowed with soft blue light, just like Una's stasis pod. And on the main console was a recording that had waited 3 centuries to be heard. Una activated it. A Velori woman appeared. She looked like an older version of Una, with the same silver skin and white hair. She was crying. If you are watching this, then we are gone, the woman said. The Krath have come. They want our healing technology, our medical secrets. We refuse to give them weapons. We refuse to help them kill. So now they will kill us instead. The recording showed images. Krath ships bombing cities. Krath soldiers dragging Velori from their homes. Bodies burning in the streets. Children crying for parents who were already dead. We were peaceful, the woman continued. We harmed no one. We only wanted to heal. But to the Krath, peace is weakness. And weakness is a crime. More images. The Krath leadership giving orders. Their voices calm and businesslike as they commanded genocide. Names, dates, locations. Everything documented with perfect clarity. We hide this record so the truth will survive us. We do not ask for revenge. We only ask that the galaxy remembers. Remember that we lived. Remember that we were good. Remember what the Krath did to us? The recording ended. The room was silent except for Una's quiet tears. Doyen put his hand on her shoulder. Are you ready to show the galaxy? She wiped her eyes and nodded. Yes, my people deserve justice. Sunho had already connected to the Galactic Communication Network. It was illegal and dangerous, but he was the best hacker in the Coalition fleet. Within minutes, he had access to every major broadcast channel in known space. Ready when you are, he said. Yuna took a deep breath. She looked into the camera. My name is Yuna. I am the last of the Valori. For 300 years, my people have been forgotten. Today, you will remember. She pressed the button. The recording began to broadcast. Every ship, every station, every planet in the galaxy received the signal. The evidence of the Krath genocide spread like fire through dry grass. Alarms began to sound throughout the building. The Krath had detected the broadcast. They were coming. Time to go, Doyen said. He grabbed Eunice's hand. They ran through the tunnels as explosions shook the ground above them. Krath soldiers poured into the archive behind them. Gunfire echoed off the walls. Sunho and the other humans formed a rear guard, fighting as they retreated. 2 of them fell, their lives given to protect the others. Doyen felt each death like a knife in his heart, but he could not stop. He had to get Yuna out. They reached the surface just as the shuttle landed. The pilot, a young woman named Hannah, had brought the ship despite the danger. They scrambled aboard as Krath soldiers fired at them from every direction. Go, Doyen shouted. The shuttle lifted off. Below them, the Krath capital was in chaos. The broadcast had reached everyone. Citizens were rioting in the streets. Other species who had lived under Krath rule were rising up. The Empire was beginning to fall as they flew toward space. Delay looked out the window at the burning city below. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She had won, but the cost had been too high for joy. Doyen sat beside her and took her hand. Your people are remembered now, he said softly. The whole galaxy knows the truth. Yuna leaned against his shoulder. 2 of your friends died, she whispered. They died for me. How do I live with that? You live by making their sacrifice mean something. You live by being the person they believed you could be. Ah! She closed her eyes. I am so tired of death. I know. He put his arm around her. But the dying is almost done. What comes next is life. The Krath homeworld grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light in the endless dark. 6 months had passed since the broadcast that changed the galaxy. The Krath Dominion had collapsed into civil war. Their allies had abandoned them. Their enemies had risen against them. The species they had conquered for centuries finally had proof of what everyone had always suspected. The Krath were not strong leaders. They were murderers and tyrants. The Earth Coalition had welcomed Doyen and his team home as heroes instead of criminals. Captain Park had been promoted to Admiral. She had stood before the Coalition Council and defended what they had done, and the Council had agreed. Sometimes breaking the rules was the right thing to do, but Doyen did not care about medals or honors. He only cared about one thing. Yuna stood at the podium of the Galactic Assembly. Representatives from 100 species had gathered to hear her speak. She was no longer the frightened girl he had found in that stasis pod. She stood straight and tall, her silver skin glowing in the bright lights, her voice clear and strong. 300 years ago, my people died, she said. The Valori were healers. We believed in peace. We believed that if we were kind to the universe would be kind to us. We were wrong. The assembly was silent. Even the most cynical politicians were listening. The Krath came with fire and death. They asked us to give them weapons. They asked us to help them kill. We refused. So they killed us instead. Every man, woman, and child. Every city, every forest, every flower. They burned my world until nothing was left but ash and bones. Yuna's voice did not break. She had cried all her tears long ago. For 300 years I slept in darkness. I thought I was waiting for death. Instead, I was waiting for something else. She looked directly at Doyen, who stood at the side of the chamber. I was waiting for humans. A murmur went through the assembly. Humans were still new to the galactic community. Many species did not know what to make of them. I will tell you about humans, Yuna continued. They are strange creatures. They are violent. They fight wars. They carry weapons. When I first saw them, I thought they were like the Krath. I thought they were another species of killers. She smiled softly. I was wrong. Humans are violent because the universe is violent. They fight because someone has to protect those who cannot protect themselves. They carry weapons not because they love death, but because they love life. They are willing to bleed and die for people they have never met, simply because it is right. She held up her hand and images appeared on the giant screen behind her. Images of Do-Yoon finding her in the temple. Images of the human soldiers defending her at Iron Harbor. Images of the team that had infiltrated Dominus Prime and lost 2 of their own to bring the truth to the galaxy. These humans risked everything for me. They had nothing to gain. I was a stranger from a dead civilization. But they saw someone who needed help, and they helped. That is what humans do. Tears were falling now, not from her eyes, but from the eyes of many in the assembly. I believed the universe was cruel, Yuna said. I believed that kindness was weakness. I believed that gentle people like my own were doomed to die. But humans taught me something different. They taught me that strength can serve compassion. They taught me that warriors can also be healers. They taught me that hope is not foolish, even in the darkest night. She took a deep breath. My people are gone. I cannot bring them back. But I can honor their memory by building something new. With the help of the Earth Coalition, I will create a memorial world. A place where the Valori will be remembered forever. A place where the flowers of Valora will bloom again. The assembly erupted in applause. Representatives from dozens of species rose to their feet. The vote was unanimous. Yuna would have her world after the ceremony. Do-Yoon found her standing alone on a balcony. She was looking up at the stars, her face peaceful for the first time since he had known her. You did well, he said, joining her. I was terrified, she admitted. But I thought of you standing there watching me, and I felt brave. He smiled. It was something he did more often now. What happens next? We go to my new world. We plant the seeds. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small container. Inside were tiny silver seeds, preserved from Valora for 300 years. These are the last seeds of the Valori moonflower. My mother gave them to me before she put me in the stasis pod. She told me to plant them somewhere safe, so that part of our home would survive. Do-Yoon looked at the seeds. Such small things to carry so much meaning. I would like you to help me plant them, Yuna said quietly. If you want to, I want to. She took his hand. Her fingers were still cool against his warm skin. Do-Yoon, I need to ask you something. Something important. Anything, will you stay with me? Her silver eyes met his. Not as my guard. Not as my protector. But as my partner. I do not want to build this new world alone. I want you beside me. Do-Yoon had spent his entire life fighting. He had never thought about what would come after the battles were done. He had never imagined having a home, or a family, or a future. But looking at Yuna, he could imagine all of those things. Yes, he said, I will stay with you. For as long as you want me. She smiled, and it was like watching a sunrise. 3 months later, they stood on the surface of the memorial world. It was a beautiful planet with blue skies and green hills and clear rivers. The Coalition had helped them terraform it. Species from across the galaxy had sent gifts and workers and supplies. Do-Hyun and Yuna stood together on a hillside overlooking a valley. In her hands, she held the container of silver seeds. This is the moment, she said. Once I plant these, the Valori will live again. At least a small part of them, then plant them. She knelt down and dug a small hole in the rich soil. One by one, she placed the seeds inside. She covered them gently with earth and poured water from a small cup. Then she stood and waited for a long moment. Do-Yoon began to worry that the seeds were too old. They would not grow. Then the soil moved. A tiny green shoot pushed its way up toward the sun. Then another. And another. Within minutes, a dozen small plants had emerged. their silver leaves catching the light. Yuna watched with tears streaming down her face. But these were not tears of sorrow. These were tears of joy. "They are alive," she whispered. "After everything, they are alive." Doyan put his arm around her. They stood together as the tiny plants grew, reaching toward the sky like children stretching after a long sleep. "You asked me once why humans fight," Yuna said softly. "Now I understand. You fight because you love. You bleed because you care. You die so that others may live. That is the most human thing of all." She looked up at him, and he saw his future in her silver eyes. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for showing me that the universe is not only cruel, there is kindness too. There is love." Doyan, the warrior who had known only battle, finally understood what he had been fighting for his whole life. "I did not save you," he said. "We saved each other." The first flowers bloomed that evening, silver petals opening to catch the light of the setting sun. They were beautiful, more beautiful than anything Dojan had ever seen. And as he stood there with Yuna, watching the flowers of her dead world come back to life, he knew that some battles were not won with weapons. Some victories could not be measured in enemies defeated. Some victories were measured in seeds. Planted and flowers bloomed in love that refused to die, the Valerie would be remembered. Their memorial world would stand for 1,000 years. And at its heart would be this garden, tended by the last survivor and the human warrior who refused to let her die. It was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning. But for now, standing together in the silver light of the first Valori flowers to bloom in 300 years, it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.